You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney prior to or during any question. If you can't afford one, the court will appoint one for you. Do you understand your rights?
When the wolf is at your door, your running's over, that's for sure. He already knows all about you. Cut you down, no matter by you. Now you better walk the line. Real life, real
Warning. This episode of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast, may contain descriptions of acts of violence or that of a sexual nature and should be for people that are 18 years or older. Heed my warning, people. I do not get the facts of these cases off of the internet or from some television show. The facts I'm retelling you were presented to me by the victims of the crimes or the perpetrators who committed the crimes against the victims. My descriptions of the crime scenes, what I saw with my own two eyes. If you're going to get it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast. And as always, I'm your host, Woody Overton. And Daddy's been running and gunning. It's been a long week. A lot of boots on the ground, a lot of the... I can't say too much without giving too much away. Been on hashtag Justice for Bradley and hashtag Justice for Austin O'Banion nonstop every day. Multiple sources, following different leads and everything else. And yes, the cases are progressing, but every lead has to be followed, right? And I have some of them pulled up, and just to give you a variety of what's going on. You get every kind of lead in the case from way out there, just absolutely couldn't be true, like aliens and shit did it, right? All the way up to stuff that has to be followed and followed hardcore. So that's all going on. And, you get a lot of, well, not a lot. I've got messages on TikTok and wherever they're like, oh, I wish he would hurry up and solve this case. He's had this case for 3 months and he hadn't solved it. Well, fuck no, I haven't solved it. Or maybe I have solved it and then I just gather more information. I'm not going to tell you that. But the deal being is, and I'm pretty sure those are the haters, the followers from Vernon Parish Sheriff's Office, and that's fine. I don't care. But people, Bradley has been dead in 2 months. It'll be 6 years. And I'm one man. Okay. Vernon Parish Sheriff's Office has a wealth of tools and resources that they can use to do, they get even the crazy tips. If they get them in, they can send somebody out to investigate them, or they should, right? And then, but if I have 65 tips and each one of them's got to be followed up on, or 165, I'm one person and I'm still doing regular or the true crime time 4 shows, 4 days a week, and hashtag Justice for Bradley, hashtag Justice for AO. And, I got other stuff that I'm doing also. So I'm a one-man band. One-man show. Does it mean we're not making progress? Hell no, because we're making progress, huge progress. And then you throw in the fights like them hacking us and all that stuff and trying to keep up with social media and everything that's rolling, and it just doesn't stop. So if you want to be pissed off at somebody, that I've been talking about it for, I don't think it's been 3 months, but however long it's been, I guess it's been 9 weeks. So Yeah, and I did have it for about a month before that. So 3 months, one man, and I've made more headway in these cases. First of all, it was only going to be one case, which morphed into 2 cases, which is now morphed into the whole Vernon Parish. You know, look, I don't just get tips on Bradley and AO. I got tips on everybody, and I'm going to start covering some of those stories, but not so much from the investigative standpoint, just to tell them. But it's all going on, so it doesn't stop. So if you are one of the people who are like, oh, he's not doing anything, he's just telling a story, you can go eat a bag of dicks, okay? Or go listen somewhere else. If you want to be mad at someone, be mad at your sheriff's office. They've had this case for almost 6 years. Bradley's case. They've had AO's case for, 2 years? And nothing's been done on it. Naturally, we know that. But the Bradley's case, 6 years old, and you want me to rush it, which I never would do, and you want it solved in an hour on a podcast, not going to happen. But when I come, I'll come correct, and we'll make them dance, okay? And evidently, look, the tip line, 313-RLRC tip, it's working. I get messages and calls all day, every day, and all night. And, good people, some ex-law enforcement, some business owners, some, I'm not going to, some crazy, but I get them. And evidently Vernon Parish is talking about these cases now, which is great. That's what we need to get more tips. And I'm not bitching about the tips, y'all, but they have to be worked. Okay. And I'm going to work them as long as I need to work them until I get ready to bring it to the powers that be that are actually going to handle this shit. So enough about that, I guess. Back in the saddle again. Now, I was thinking about this and how I want to approach this. And I guess I'll left you with AO's autopsy and some questions about that and what was and what wasn't done. Oh, here's another one. Conspiracy. Let's talk about that. I have never said this whole thing is a big conspiracy. Okay. I have said that Bradley, first of all, is murdered, and I've given you the facts that the way they were presented to me. Okay. And we're working on it. All right. And look, if shit wasn't done or was done incorrectly by Vernon Parish Sheriff's Office, that's on them. Certainly, I think there are way more great people in Vernon Parish Sheriff's Office and Vernon Parish than there are bad. Now, I know a lot of you think it's a conspiracy, and I've never said it's a conspiracy. And in the AO's case, being tied in to Bradley's case, I believe that. I believe she was murdered because she ratted, man, straight up. And I'm going to prove that to you today. I'm going to prove it to you. I'm going to give you some more evidence on that today, on today's episode. But don't lump me in and get on social media and say, oh, so you think the DAs and the coroners and the sheriff's office and the bad guys are all conspiring to do this, No, motherfucker. I wonder why you think it's a conspiracy. I didn't say it's a conspiracy. All right. I said shit is shady from all different angles. And it is. And Vernon Parish knows it, because you wouldn't be blowing me up all day long. And that, look, the people in Vernon Parish are fucking tired. They're tired of cases not getting solved. They're tired. And, what happens is when you have stuff like this that goes on and then something else happens, then they're like, oh, well, they didn't solve this one, and this must be related to this one. And I have these messages, and then they are tied in and said, well, it must be a conspiracy, right? Whatever. I didn't say conspiracy. If it proves out to be a conspiracy in the end, well, that's where the evidence will lead. But you make yourself suspect by saying that I'm saying everybody's in cahoots and everybody's bad. I never said that. Never believed that. But the facts are what they are. All right. What I told you about AO's photographs and autopsy. That's fact. That's hardcore fact. All right. And what I'm about to read you about AO is hardcore fact. It's not a conspiracy. All right. So let's get into this. I actually got the court minutes, y'all. Now, remember I told you Austin O'Banion got picked up on a probation violation. And my experience, and this is going to back it up. My experience is we call it getting swung. When you're out on paper or probation or parole, you're assigned an officer, and you have the judge reads you strict rules and guidelines that you have to follow. This is a condition of you getting the fuck out of jail. All right. And you have to follow for whatever your charge is. You have to follow the rules. And if you don't follow them, then they will rearrest your ass for violating those rules that the judge laid down. And then you get sent to jail, right, on your probation violation. And it may take a month or two for you to get before the judge again. But when you get before the judge again, your probation or parole officer has got to get on the stand and testify. First of all, they got to get the warrant to tell the judge before you get arrested, right? And they have to swear probable cause for that. But then when you finally get to court, you don't get a bond when you go to jail on a probation violation. It just doesn't happen, all right? But you do not get out before you see the judge, period. And a lot of times the judge will swing you as, let's say you had 10 years sentenced to the Department of Corrections, suspended based on you being put on, probation for 3 years, whatever. You have to meet X, Y, and Z standards. And if you violate any of these, you get swung. And that's it. And then when you go back before the judge, he can go all the way back to making you serve every day of that 10-year sentence, or they can say, okay, well, you know what? And usually it's some parish jail time involved on the first offense. Okay, you're going back to jail for the X amount of time, and when you get out, I will restore your original sentence of probation. What you're still backing up that time, right? You gotta complete all the shit the judge lays out to get off the probation and to get off from whatever the original DOC sentence they sentenced you to. All right. So I told you that Austin O'Banion got picked up on a probation violation, and she sat in jail, right? And that's where the y'all heard the witness say that Detective Vance came into jail and hollered down and said, "Hey, get her ready for her polygraph," and in Lake Charles, right? And so everybody knew she was talking on Bradley's case. I mean, it was a well-known fact. And also, I'm not throwing shade on AO, and I can prove this, and I'll prove it later on. She was a known confidential informant for Vernon Parish Sheriff's Office. She had helped herself before when she got out of trouble by telling on somebody else. That's a fact. So she gets picked up, locked up, no bond, no chance of getting out before you see the judge. Okay. And now I'm going to tell you about her original case that this probation violation came on. And these are actual court documents, y'all. So I'm going to read them. So bear with me, and all the way to the end, because the dates are what's very important. So the original, we're going all the way back to November the 14th of 2022. And it's, there's 3 charges listed. 02, 03 of 22, so February 3rd of 2022. Count 1, theft of identity. Count 2, forgery. Count 3, theft of identity. All right. And the court documents read: the 13th Judicial District Court, Honorable C. Anthony Eves, presiding. Jessica Blandbaker, court reporter. Jennifer Bordelon, minute clerk. Sean Carter as the bailiff, convened and processed as follows. 97775, State of Louisiana versus Austin Lena O'Banion. Plea and sentence. To count 1, theft of identity. Count 2, forgery. Count 3, theft of identity. The defendant was present with counsel, Lisa Nelson, on behalf of Clay Williams. The state was represented by Assistant District Attorney Ronald C. Trunk. The defendant moved to withdraw her former plea of not guilty and entered a plea of guilty to 97775, count 1, as charged. The defendant was sworn and questioned by the court regarding her age, education, and health. All right, boom. Not a boom, but they do that. Time somebody takes a plea deal, the judge asks them, what's your education level? Do you understand English? Do you understand what you're doing here today? They want to make sure it won't get overturned on appeal, okay? Back to the court document. So, the defendant was sworn and questioned by the court regarding her age, education, and health, the waiver of her constitutional rights, meaning she doesn't have to say anything, the plea agreement, which she agreed to, mandatory disclosure, conditions of probation, and waiver of financial declaration hearing forms were signed, filed, and acknowledged by the defendant. The defendant was informed of the nature of the offense, the possibility of penalty, the right to trial by jury or judge alone, right to cross-examine witnesses, and privilege against self-incrimination and recidivist nature of the offense. The defendant waived all rights entering a plea of guilty. The court accepted the plea to be as being given knowingly, intelligently, and free and voluntarily. The defendant announced ready for sentence and waived all delays. The court sentenced the defendant as follows, to wit. On 97775, theft of identity, serve 5 years at hard labor with the Louisiana Department of Corrections and pay a fine in the amount of $1,500 plus court costs. The court suspended the prison sentence and placed the defendant on supervised probation for a period of 3 years, subject to the following special conditions, to wit. 1. Pay fines and costs per pay plan, a minimum of $150 a month. 2. Pay supervision fees in the amount of $65 per month. 3. Pay restitution to blank blank, I'm not going to say the victim's name, in the amount of $999. 4. Testify truthfully against the co-defendant blank blank blank. It's 3 names. 5. Comply with the conditions of probation. The defendant was advised that the sentence is subject to diminution for good behavior and was not enhanced upon the basis of the habitual offender laws or other provisions of law. The defendant was advised, pursuant to Article 914, that any motion for appeal must be made within 30 days, and Article 930.8, the application for post-conviction relief must be filed within 2 years. On the motion of the state, the court grants motion to dismiss 97555 counts 2 and 3. The defendant was remanded to the custody of the sheriff. All right, stick with me, y'all. This is where it gets good. All right, so basically, they dropped 2 of the charges. She pled guilty to 1, and that's what she got sentenced to. Okay, moving on. Count 1, theft of identity. Count 2, forgery. Count 3, theft of identity. The 13th Judicial District Court, Honorable C. Anthony Eves presiding, Jessica Blankenbaker, court reporter, Jennifer Bordelon, minute clerk, Johnny West, bailiff, convene and proceed as follows. 97775, State of Louisiana versus Austin Lania Abanion, theft of identity. Here we go. Probation revocation hearing. The defendant was present with counsel, Lisa Nelson, who was standing in for Clay Williams. The state was represented by Assistant District Attorney Ronald C. Trunk. The defendant admits to the allegation that she is in violation of the conditions of probation. Based on her own admission, The court finds that the defendant is in violation of the conditions of probation and ordered the defendant to serve 30 days in the Vernon Parish Jail and restored the defendant to probation. The court further denied ECC. The defendant was remanded to the custody of the sheriff. And y'all, this was signed on August the 11th of 2025. Stick with me. This is a true copy and correct copy of the minutes of the 30th Judicial District Court, Judge Scott Westerschel presiding, and the Deputy Clerk, 30th Judicial Court, Vernon Parish, August the 11th, 2025. Why is that important? Okay, let's roll. Continuing. Stick with me. We'll put it together and then. Let's see if I turn it sideways, read it better. Not really. All right. Now, this is how she got back to court, y'all. Detainer notification, affidavit of probable cause, and motion for hearing to revoke probation. State of Louisiana, Parish of Vernon, docket number VRN 97775. Says, before me, the undersigned authority personally came and appeared Mark Winkler, who being first duly sworn, deposed and said that he is an employee of the Office of Probation and Parole assigned to the following case. Probationer, Austin Abanion, DOC number 579714. Offenses convicted of, identity theft. Conviction date, 11/14/2022. Sentencing judge, Anthony Eves, Division B. Original sentence, 5 years suspended, 3 years probation. Detained, here's the date, y'all, 6/26/2023. And that affiant has called that the probationer to be arrested for violations of the terms of his or her probation in the following particulars. 1. Make a full, this is where they're going to list what Austin did wrong to get arrested again, okay, to get swung. 1. Make a full and truthful report at the end of each month. And it says, in that, subject failed to report into the Leesville District Office since 11/28/2022, which led to an absconding warrant being issued on 1/23/2023. On 6/26/2023, subject was arrested on that absconding warrant by probation and parole. Okay, so she didn't. That's the first thing she didn't do. I'm gonna read you the rest of them. But she failed to report on November 28th of 2022. They finally issued a warrant for her on January 23rd of 2023, and you can't outrun the papers. What I always say, they called up to her on June the 26th of 2023. All right. Now, what else did she do wrong? 3. Report to the probation officer as directed. And that subject failed to report to the Leesville District Office as ordered on 12/01/2022. 4. Permit the probation officer to visit you at home or elsewhere. What did she do wrong? In that, subject has moved from her listed address without notifying her officer, making home visits impossible. Next one. 9. Remain within the jurisdiction of the court and get the permission of the probation officer before making any change in your address or your employment. Was she do wrong? And that subject changed her address without the permission of her officer. The probationer's history of violations during this term of probation include the following. Based upon the probationer's conduct and prior history of violation, the affiant moves the sentencing judge to take the appropriate action as to the continued detention of probationer and to assign the matter to a for a hearing as to revocation of probation. It's signed by Mark Winkler, probation officer, and that's on June the 26th of 2023. So when they got her, right? So the judge issues a warrant back in January. They try to contact her since November. Basically, she violated those terms I just read, y'all, and they catch her on June the 26th of 2023. Now, she's gone to jail. Okay? She's sitting in jail. Now, continuing. Action by the court. Considered the foregoing motion, it is ordered that probable cause, and y'all could listen over probable cause or probable cause, but I'm reading where he initialed by it. Probable cause is found on probation violation. The probationer is to appear at a hearing on the 26th day of July, 2023 at 9:00 a.m. to determine if probation should be revoked for the conditions of probation amended. Bail is denied, and the initials are by that, okay? PDO is appointed, I guess that's Public Defender's Office, is appointed to represent the probationer. This done before me in Leesville, Louisiana, this 28th day of June, 2023. And these initials are Judge Anthony Eves, Division B, 30th Judicial Court. And this says, please serve probationer Austin O'Banion, Vernon Parish Jail, right? Okay, stick with me. All right, y'all. So he originally set it for the 26th day of July. All right, 2023 at 9 a.m. That didn't happen for whatever reason. She goes back in on August the 11th. And I may have said 2025 earlier. That was incorrect. Okay. So or 7/26/2023, and they didn't sign it until later. But anyway, what I read you, is that she was present in court on the theft of identity charge and for her probation revocation hearing, right? And she was present with her counsel, blah, 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 and the DA's there, blah, blah, blah. The defendant admits to the allegation that she is in violation of the conditions of probation. Based on her own admission, the court finds that the defendant is in violation of the conditions of probation and ordered the defendant to serve 30 days in the Vernon Parish Jail. When she completes those 30 days, the defendant will be restored to probation. Means right back to where she is. She got swung for 30 days, right? Can't get out. Judge's orders, can't get out, swung for 30 days, and then you got to get back out and you got to follow all your terms of probation. Y'all, what's wrong with this? Right? You got to do 30 days in the jail, period. And we know she was there, got the records, and we know that they took her out, two detectives, Vanson or Burrell, whoever it was. They took her out at nighttime to her family's home. She collected a box. What's in it? Speculation. And we know that for a fact, and from many, many different sources, including the family. We know that she went to Lake Charles to take a polygraph on whether she was being truthful on what she saw the day Bradley was murdered. Okay? We know she gave statements as to who was there, right? And what she saw. And we know Detective Vance told numerous people, and I have statements, I dare him to challenge me on it. He told numerous people that Austin O'Banion passed that polygraph with flying colors, and she was absolutely telling the truth about her being there and who else was there and who was involved and etc. Right? I mean, she did it. And we also know God and everybody knows that she was helping them on this case. Well, the problem with that is she's supposed to do 30 days in jail, which would have been like September the 11th or something, sometime around then. And guess what? She was found. They said overdose, right? They also didn't say. They also said she didn't have a scratch on her, and that's documented everywhere. But she was found dead with all the injuries that I could see that I described to you on July 31st, 2023. Y'all, she's supposed to be in jail. She wasn't supposed to be out. There's nothing in the court records, and I've checked. There's nothing in the court records where they go back and the judge says, oh, okay, well, she's helping and let her out, right? Nothing on record. But regardless, she got out, and from all accounts, I think it was a day before, or at least a day and a half before that she actually got out of jail. I have to go back and check that. But she gets out, and however, less than 48 hours later, she's found dead with the injuries that I told you that I could see, and some that were documented in the autopsy, like, oh, she had bruising all over her body and scratch on her knee. Then they documented the injuries to her forehead, whatever, but there was more. I mean, she wasn't supposed to be out of jail. She cooperated. Not the first time she's cooperated. All right. Even in this court document, you hear that part of her getting out on probation was she had to testify against her cohort and the identity theft, 2 counts of identity theft and the forgery charges. All right. So she cooperates. No big deal. Nobody deserves to be murdered, and nobody deserves to be unalived, or if you will. Now, I have hours, and I mean hours, of recorded phone conversations with people who were there. People, golly, I don't want to give it, it doesn't matter. People who were there, law enforcement already knows this. People who were there right up until the point where Austin was found, they say, an overdose. I think we're throwing enough shade on that to make it questionable. People were there with her within like minutes, and you're the last one to see her alive. And she was staying in the room in the trailer that you were sharing with somebody else, and then magically she's found the way she was found, and you rule it an overdose. But you tell the family there's not a scratch on her. And you know what? I wasn't even going to read this today, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to touch on this. I have the full case file on this other case. You heard Morgan Baggett talk about on this episode that not this episode, on the series, that when Sheriff Sam Kraft told Austin O'Banion's father that she didn't have a scratch on her, and that she was dead, he also said that, unsolicited, said the cartel was not involved. Now, that's kind of a weird statement, right? But the deal being is, Vernon Parish is not that fucking big. And of course, you have Fort Polk there, or whatever they call it now. And it's really rural. Really, really rural, right? Who would think that the cartel would ever even be in Vernon Parish? I have a case file where a guy was the largest distributor for the Sonora Mexican cartel in Vernon Parish, and he took a plea bargain for 20 years. All right, and which was really a sweetheart of a deal for him. And I'm going to read that next week. I'm going to get into that. But the main reason I'm telling you about it is why. When he went for his sentencing, guess who wrote a shining letter of review for him, saying that, you know what, he worked in a mechanic shop or where he worked, and he, you know, was a good inmate or whatever, basically asking for leniency. You know, hey, judge, when you look at this cat, you know, he was a good dude, right? He was a good inmate, whatever. And this is, it states in the paperwork, Sonora Mexican cartel, largest drug dealer in Vernon Parish. This guy, that the sheriff, Sam Kraft, wrote a glowing letter of review to the judge before the judge sentenced him. And it's all brought up in the appeals case. So if you think the cartel statement is out of context, if you think the Sonora Mexican cartel, and I'm sure, you know, the cartels are fighting over the territory or were fighting over it, if you think it doesn't exist, you're crazy. It's not crazy. You know, I don't want to call anybody crazy, but you're wrong. It's documented before Bradley's case that this guy got convicted specifically, and it's a lot of shit in there, but specifically for being the largest distributor for the Sonora Mexican cartel in Vernon Parish. Pounds of methamphetamine. There you have it. So the sheriff does know that, or, you know, I don't know, maybe he was talking, just slipped his tongue or whatever, and maybe the sheriff was thinking, "Ooh," maybe sheriff got told it was just an overdose. Maybe he never saw Ayo's body. I don't know, but he made that statement about the cartel. Well, he knows the cartel was there, and he knows what this guy that he wrote the letter for was going down for being the largest distributor for the Sonora cartel. Austin O'Banion wasn't even supposed to be out of jail. I told y'all that before. You don't get out of jail on a probation revocation. You go back, you go on to big boy or big girl prison to serve your full sentence, or you get 30 days or 90 days, however long in the parish jail, and they'll give you another shot at probation. Her cooperating, it is what it is. Maybe she had a guilty conscience of not having come forward all these years later, but she was on the run from November when she didn't report in, and then all the violations I read y'all. Finally, they got tired of her shit in January, and they were like, "Get a warrant, right? Don't catch her until June." That's 6 months later, almost to the date, and then she sits in jail for another month or something until she goes back to court and gets her 30 days and wasn't supposed to be out. So you do it. You Austin O'Banion sitting in the jail, detoxing from all, you know, the lifestyle that you're living or whatever. Have a moment of clarity for whatever reason, and then you want to talk. And she also not only talked to law enforcement, but she told basically the same story to another female inmate that was in there with her. The only difference was she told the cops that she picked Bradley up, and she told this female that Bradley picked her up, whatever. And that wouldn't have been a, you know, did Bradley pick you up or did you pick Bradley up? Wouldn't have been a question on the polygraph anyway. But that's it. And keep calling in your tips. It is what it is. And Rome wasn't built in a day. Not going to do it half-ass. I'm going to come correct. And everybody that keeps calling, and look, y'all, holy smokes. Not only on this case, hey, keep calling in whatever you want. Love it, right? I got a tip that leads back to a probable serial killer for the 1980s, and supposedly there is a recording of this dude confessing, and I can't pass that shit up. I mean, I gotta look into that too. If it's true, you could produce a recording of this guy confessing to these murders. Shit, I'm gonna do what I do. This dog's gonna hunt, right? And so everything is going on. Everything is progressing, and the people there. One person called me yesterday and said, "Bro, you wouldn't believe every time over morning coffee and every grocery store, or not grocery store, every convenience store in the parish, and people stopping at the counter, they talking about this case or these cases. You know what? They should be. The Bradley's murdered. Austin, there wouldn't even be a question about it had they not said there wasn't a scratch on her, and had she not been working as a confidential informant in Bradley's murder case. I don't know. So, and there's plenty more I could read to y'all, and I'll get into more next week. Just got back to home base. I have literally been gone for 6 days. So I'll do more on social media this week and more TikToks on different things about these cases. But y'all, please continue to call in your tips. 313-RLRC tip. And that's and hashtag justice for Bradley, hashtag justice for AO. Anywhere you leave a comment. Patreon of Convicts, you're going to get this early, commercial free. Tonight, I would assume, probably before midnight, whenever Cindy can get done editing. Everybody else, you're going to get it on Sunday this week, and I'll do a post about that. It's just the way business works, y'all. And just got back in, just was able to put it together. But please continue to call on your tips. In Miss Barbara Blunt's case, the 3 episodes we dropped on Real Life Real Crime of Sheriff Ard's behind the scenes podcast talk about Miss Barbara Blunt's case. Y'all use the same tip line, 313-RLRC tip. Call in anything. If you don't want to call the sheriff's office, you don't have to. Call me. I don't have to play by the law enforcement rules anymore. I don't have to give up names. All right. And I'm Woody Overton, your host of Real Life Real Crime, the podcast. Until next time, or ever, don't let me catch you down on Murder Bayou. Peace.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney prior to or during any question. If you can't afford one, the court will appoint one for you. Do you understand your rights?